Welcome everyone to the third video in our Asia Pacific MVP series. My name is Benjamin Hodge, I'm from Kemp Technologies, and I'd like to welcome Triston Wan. Thank you very much for joining us today, Triston. You work at Chaz Asia, specializing in Microsoft Exchange for many years now, and Exchange MVP. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So first of all, Microsoft Exchange already has a huge percentage of global mailboxes. I think the most recent number I saw was around 85% of all mailboxes worldwide. So given how mature the product is and the market is, I'm quite interested to hear from you, what are some of the either newer or undervalued or overlooked capabilities that some organizations might be missing out on?
Sure. With the Exchange 2013 Service Pack 1 launch, there's some small changes other than the major one that everyone is talking about, like the MAPI over HTTP. I would like to mention this additional improvement on the DLP, where when 2013 was launched, that there is a lot of talk on the DLP because moving to the new generation of email systems, security is the things on the top of mind of the executive as well as the IT person. So DLP has improved. So what this new DLP doing is actually is looking at the document fingerprint. Okay, so the feature is called DLP document fingerprint. So what it does do is it applies a blanket scanning. Okay, so rather than looking at the specific keywords, so what it looks at is at document level, right? Mm-hmm. So once you implant the fingerprint on the DLP rules, so DLP will look at the document as a whole rather than just a particular keywords. So for example, you have a HR recruitment form, okay, where people fill in all the personal details, right? So having someone really want to leak the document out by changing certain keywords, right, to prevent the DLP from catching it up. Okay, the DLP fingerprint will look at the document as a whole. So even though they change certain things to prevent the filterings, then the DLP fingerprint rules will still pick it up the documents and block it. So that's very nice features that Microsoft put into to improve DLP. The second feature I would like to mention that is this feature called S-MIME for OR. So in the early days when we try to put in more security measure on a particular email message by using a SSL cert to sign and encrypt the document, that only happened on the Outlook client. Okay, but moving to the new generation of work where the mobile and cloud first work, right? A lot of people are moving around, okay, with only the mobile phone and probably with a laptop with their own laptop that doesn't have Outlook client in it. But when they send a sensitive document, they really need to encrypt the documents. How to do that without the Outlook client? So this new feature enables the users to just do the encryption from the web page itself, where the webmail that you do the minimum, just quickly reply or send a sensitive document over the webmail, just quick 5 minutes. Okay, that's really nice features. And last but not least, the feature I would like to mention is beneficial to the administrators, where from the administration portal, you can open up the logins, that you look at all the commands that you have been executed in the PowerShell. Okay, they keep a history. So previously, when the administrator wants to know what exactly they have been executing for the past, let's say for example 30 minutes, they have to go to the command prompt, issue a command, and print out all the list of the commands, right? So now you can do it from the admin console on the web page. So it's really nice feature that they have.
Okay, and actually that's quite an interesting lead up to my next question. You just mentioned 3 quite useful and important functions there, but nowhere really mentioned mail. I mean, we're worried about data privacy, we're worried about security, and so how much has the role of an Exchange administrator changed, over the period that Exchange has been out there, but in particular in the last few years?
With the new Office 365 and any specific Exchange Online has been really hot selling product in the market. I believe the administrators, from email administrator perspective, their role really changed a lot. Previously, in the early days, when the email administrator receive a new requirement from the business user, they will just straight dive into the technicality of the products. They're looking for a specific features that fits what has been asked for or requested from the business users. So often the IT administrator will not try to understand why the business user want that particular features, and is it a particular features that really suits the business user's needs, because most of the time the business user just go to Google and from the RSS feed, you saw this particular new feature was launched and they say, oh, that's really nice, I want to have it, right? With the new generation of cloud service, so the how to implement these particular features and how to safeguard the availability of the infrastructure was taken care of by the 365. So IT administrator now, they really have to step out from their comfort zone and then go forward with the business user and tell them that this is the feature they have, and I want to understand why do you need that features, and is that a particular special business requirement that need that trigger this particular feature, and I'm here to help you to understand is this feature really fits your business requirements. So that in that kind of engagement, the IT administrator become a business aware IT administrators, that they can add the value to not just only the features on the technology, right? They adding the value by telling the business user that I, as an IT administrator, understand what you need from business angle. And this is the technology that will bring you productivities, efficiencies, and help you to achieve more than what you just wanted.
I think we've seen that trend in a lot of IT, where it's matured into, IT administrators and managers and directors need to become much more of a business enabler as opposed to a technician, as you mentioned.
Exactly.
So you mentioned already Office 365, and personally, most of your projects in the last few years have been very much focused on Office 365, on helping organizations migrate and take advantage of this. So in that area of expertise particularly, and between hybrid and complete migrations, what are some of the common mistakes or misunderstandings or oversights that organizations make in that planning stage, and as you mentioned, really doing an analysis on what does the business want to get out of this? Is there anything you can share with us today?
Sure. So for the past 2 years, we have done a lot of migration from the on-premise Exchange to Office 365. So often what we encounter is the expectations. Okay, so users, the IT administrators have different set of expectations when it comes to Office 365, because they are so used to what they have now, which is the server will start sitting maybe 50 meters down the road and on another room, and the users are very much aligned to what they have now by sending an email to a colleague, and from the desk, they just walk over to the colleague's cubicle and tell them, hey, just send an email there, can you just tell me what exactly the answer of this? But moving to Office 365, users have to understand that the server is no longer with them anymore. It's sitting in the data center hosted by Microsoft, right? The email send and receive is not as fast as what they expected to, because it's a hosted service, right? That is actually what we need to do at the very beginning of the project implementation, to align the user's expectation, tell them that this is what's coming, okay, and this is what you're supposed to be expect. Okay. So the IT administrator and project team usually have to understand that in certain cases, when user mention that oh, it's really slow and I really don't have all these things there, we need to step forward and try to understand more what exactly they are trying to tell us, rather than just using the feature and the log and say that, oh no, this is not what happened, right?
Yeah. Okay, and again, the mail server is not just down the hall, as you mentioned, in these kind of scenarios, whether hybrid or fully hosted solutions. So, in the mainstream media, we've seen many articles in the last few months on privacy breaches, and there are also a lot of regulated industries where they have very strong regulations containing business communications and information inside national borders. So, Is there really an alternative for these type of organizations that are either have legislative restrictions or just internal policies that don't allow them to move their data to particular hosted sites? Is there anything that they can do to try and get the same kind of advantages in a different way, or is it really a matter of just sticking with the traditional on-premise?
Okay, so to answer that particular question, that we understand that certain industry regulations that are stated quite specific, saying that the certain type of data should not leave the country. And if you just apply this regulation blindly to the 365, I would say it's unfortunate you can't exactly stop data from replicating from the one data center in one country over to the other data center, right? From the hoster perspective, they need to provide a highest SLA to the customer so that the availability is the highest priority in the hosters, right? So on another side, the compliance is also another thing that the hoster need to take in care, so that a lot of industry players are able to onboard the services, right? So looking at the 365, they actually comply with a lot of so-called industry regulations like HIPAA, even Europe Privacy Data Act, all this. To counter the requirement of keeping the data within, we need to understand the rationale and the background of that particular regulatories. What I can understand so far is because of certain data is quite sensitive, in particularly personal data, right? So they do not want the data to be replicated overseas for other people to farm the data. So what I can say that at this junction, there is a workaround. It's not something that you can't do. Rather than rely on hoster to keep the data within the country where you lost your availability to be able to fail over to another site in the event the data center is down, you can use a tools to protect the so-called leakage at the data level. For example, encryptions. Mm-hmm. So when you send an email, you encrypt your personal private key, private certifications. So only the intended a user is able to open up. So even the data is replicated to another country, you'll be very sure that the other person wouldn't just be able to just open up, okay, unless the person you open up is the one you want them to open up. So I've shared how to protect the email data. So I'm using another example of SharePoint Online. So how do you protect the documents that you have been uploaded to SharePoint Online? You can use RMS. Okay, another wonderful feature from Microsoft, the rights management systems, that you apply a certain set of policies on the documents. Okay, for example, you set an expiration date, saying that for these documents, I only make it valid for a month. So even and only open up to, let's say, for example, the group of people, right? So anyone who try to download the document and attach to the email sent to someone outside the organizations or your competitors, right? The person can't open because the person's name is not in, and the person doesn't have the rights to do so, right? So this is the things that you can do to protect the documents and ensure even the data is sitting on another side of the country or another country's data center, and someone will take the data out of the so-called the server and the infrastructure, right? They are not able to open because they don't have the rights.
So I think the key thing there is for people to look a little bit deeper into the requirements rather than just writing off the whole opportunity. Depending on the local laws, on their industry, there are possibly a lot of solutions out there where they can still take advantage of these.
Exactly.
Oh, that's great. I think that's a really useful insight for people to look into it further. So just finally today, to finish up, if people are looking for resources on Exchange, there is no shortage. I mean, it has been around a long time. But I think in some ways that makes it even more difficult to really find what is up to date, what is relevant. And also as we move more and more towards that business advisor, rather than just how-tos on a very technical level, people are looking more and more for advice and frameworks on making the key decisions. So is there anything you can recommend to our listeners today, that they can find, more relevant and useful information?
Sure. The first and foremost that you can always go to Microsoft. Okay, they have a bunch of evangelists are doing evangelizing their products, and they are always there to help the customers as well as the end users or the IT administrators to understand the technology better. And if the administrator or end user really need a white paper that really need a best case reference, these are the people that you can approach that they can share with you. Locally in the local country, there always a user group. Okay, so you can always attend the user group, sign up their mailing list, so you can attend the events, and you can meet the industry experts or the industry evangelists, and you can talk to them, and they will often more willing to share with you what they have been doing and what they think is the right thing to do. For example, the minimum migrations or data protections on the security level. In Singapore itself, we have a half-yearly event. They call it Community Technology Update Event, CTU in short, where the industry experts, the MVPs, and the community leaders then step forward and share their experience, share the updates of technologies with all the community users. So we can attend and get knowledge, get some mind share, some knowledge, and update on the technologies. Other than that, you can always approach online, such as Exchange product group blog, Link product group blog, and you have a forum hosted by Microsoft that if you have any issues, you just post it online. The moderator from Microsoft will answer for you. If not, the MVP will be there to answer the question for you. Exchange.org. Okay, is also another very good Exchange resource that most of the MVP are authors that are contributing the articles, writing the best practice, and teach you how to. Over there, they have a video blog as well. I think that should be sufficient.
Great. So thank you again, Triston Wan, for your time today, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.